At the Warrior and Family Support Center in San Antonio, another kind of healing is going on at the San Antonio Military Medical Center. Along with its homelike Hill Country Ranch-style activity center and dining room, Acres of Gardens assist soldiers and their families through physical and emotional recovery. In 2015, the American Horticultural Therapy Association presented them the Therapeutic Garden Design Award.
The Warrior and Family Support Center was originally begun 12 years ago, moved into this site 7 years ago, and the purpose of it is to encourage warriors and their families, help them interact back into society to a overused expression, but a whole new normal, because their lives are changed forever. We provide activities, classes, anything that will allow them to be back part of the community that they live in.
My son was injured in Afghanistan, and he came to the finest center for treatment, which is here, and that's how I came here. I came to see him. Obviously they sent for me, and I started walking around the track. I would notice a rose that needed pruning or something that I thought could use a little bit of work. So I said, "Do you need volunteers?" And they said, "We sure do in the garden." That's how I started.
To finance the building and the garden design, Steve Huffman founded the nonprofit Returning Heroes Home, raising startup funds from over 8,000 donors.
In 2007, we first met Judith Markels. At the time, she was in a room in a hotel and didn't have the space that she needed to really serve the wounded warriors and their families.
They raised all the monies, and they did all the work, and we moved in.
We have a lot of very severely injured and wounded soldiers here, burn patients, people with prosthetics, threatened amputations, and they tend to be here for a very long time. When we started looking into the idea of therapeutic gardens on site, we started doing some research and found Brian Bainson with Quatrefoil in Portland, Oregon. Brian's main role was to lay out the architectural design, the raised planters, the walking surfaces, the berming activity.
Dallas designer Jennifer Golden laid out the initial Texas Tough plantings financed by Returning Heroes Home. Since then, local nurseries and gardeners jump in to add plants and materials.
The people in San Antonio have been phenomenal. You know, we get fertilizer donated, we get plants donated. Everybody that I invite to come here and take a tour, they are just blown away with what has been done for our wounded warriors, so they're just willing to help out.
But it's volunteers that keep the garden at its best in every season. Melody McMahon has nurtured it since day one.
It was my neighbors, the Huffmans, who built the place, and I was at their house, and they were talking about building a facility for the wounded warriors, and I asked if they needed help, and I came out here the next week, and I've been here ever since.
A Bexar County master gardener, Melody eventually enlisted their help along with the gardening volunteers of South Texas.
Almost every week, someone will stop and thank us for being here, which is something that I'm just so amazed by since I thank them for everything that they do, and I just love being here.
Some of the volunteers are actually moms that are here with their sons.
I had absolutely nothing but an injured child, my one and only. And yeah, I've watched the seasons. I've watched things growing and planting and cutting back and dying and renewing, and it's the best remedy in the world for anybody.
John Carter was hired as our staff gardener 2.5 years ago, and what a blessing he has been.
They all want soldiers and families to experience Texas hospitality through its plants and wildlife. They do avoid plants that remind soldiers where they received their injuries.
The butterfly garden was one of my favorite pieces, having understood the patient population. The symbol of the butterfly is very important to the caregivers and the people in the burn unit because they see it as a symbol of hope. Just like a caterpillar is cocooned and then turns into a butterfly, it's the same thing that happens in the burn unit. These patients are cocooned in bandages, and it takes them months to even be able to go outdoors. And for them, once they get here, it's an amazing therapeutic situation that we can't even comprehend.
We plant things on purpose to bring in, especially the monarchs. They wanted to have a variety and show what can grow in this area. But what was so cool is the other day, a soldier was here, and he was from Chicago. originally, and he wanted a picture of him holding an apple so he could send it to his mom in Chicago. It was so cute.
The variety of surfaces does more than create unique journeys from one space to another.
They want to be able to walk on some soft grass, and they want something that's not desert, especially if they've come back from war. They want something that's green and lush and soothing. When they are fitted with their prosthetic limbs, sometimes they need to learn how to walk on them on different surfaces. So they on purpose did concrete, different bricks, the crushed granite. We even have a bridge in the back that they can walk over, and it's a little wobbly. So it's just to help them learn on different surfaces how to walk again.
And there's also an artificial turf field that's used by the physical therapist. So there's regularly scheduled group therapy sessions out on the turf field.
Since families can spend months or years here, playgrounds let children run around and have fun like they did at home. Important therapy for their parents, too. Families often gather in the covered pavilion where sponsors provide barbecues, breakfasts, and other events.
We have breakfast here every Saturday morning for 200 and some odd people. Everything is free here. No money exchanges hands between warriors, staff. Everything is free, and everything is sponsored by donated money.
It adjoins the Purple Heart patio, enjoyed not only on ceremonial occasions. Its grapevine-covered pergola, framed by fragrance and color, invites daily reflection on service and honor. Everywhere, there's soothing water to induce emotional calm and temper the Texas heat. There's also water from above. Misters along porches, pathways, and the kitchen pavilion cool soldiers who can't regulate their body heat.
An additional consideration for the burn patients in particular, there's shade structures that are located relatively close to the building out in the garden areas.
You know, he has a light sensitivity from his injury, and so it's hard for him to come out in sunlight. But he comes out. I bring him out.
I talked to one of the burn patients, and he said for a couple months he couldn't even see out a window. Couldn't sit in a wheelchair. He said as soon as he could sit in the wheelchair, he said, just push me to a window, I have to see outside. And this place was the first place he came to when they let him out of the hospital, because he said, I heard there's this great place on campus.
I just feel like if I can help the wounded warriors and their families, come back to life and just feel better for one day, that's what I'm here for.
I have hundreds of friends here. They all stop to hug me. They're walking on one leg or two legs or, missing arms, burns, whatever it is. And they are walking the tracks and stopping to chat. And, it is wonderful. Smelling the flowers, because I make sure they know which ones are perfumed.
For a moment in time, you're where you used to be, and you will never be again. In the front door it says, life is all about how you handle Plan B here, because Plan A is gone. So part of our job and all of the community's job is to help them find and succeed at Plan B.